A city rich in history, landmarks, and celebrity, there's no question that LA is iconic, and the food scene is no exception. We're going into the kitchens of 5 of Los Angeles' top chefs to see how they tap into the creative energy of legendary La La Land to create iconic signature dishes. Behind the dish, LA icons. Since the golden age of the silver screen and the heyday of Hollywood, LA has created cultural and culinary legends. From a classic onion tart to a luscious short rib dumpling, a wonderfully imaginative frozen dessert to a buttery, rich take on escargot, we taste some of LA's iconic dishes from the city's culinary icons. After spending more than a decade training with French masters, Ludovic Lefebvre ventured to the West Coast to become one of the most influential chefs in Los Angeles. Chef Lefebvre continues to carry the flag for French cuisine, and no dish better exemplifies his Franco fervor than his onion tart at Petit Trois.
The onion tart is really a celebration of food, bring people together, sharing a little glass of wine. It's really a dish who comes from my heart. So my name is Ludovic Lefebvre. I'm the chef owner of Petit Trois restaurant in Chemin-Aux. The onion tart for me is memory. When I was in vacation in south of France, and for me it was really about celebration. That's what I want to bring this dish here at Petit Trois, because it's really about sharing and people together. I love onion tart. I love onions. Who don't like caramelized onions? Tell me. Who don't like bread dough or pizza? Everybody like that. So there's these two together, and it's amazing, okay? The onion tart for me, it's really memory where you have all your family, all your friends, all together, and we just celebrate a time together. It's about sharing a moment, sharing life with people. It's sharing good time with your friend. Food is about that, not just eating, but sharing time. Caramelized onions. Make sure when you cook your onions, start your pan very, very low and don't burn your butter. You really want to cook your onions very, very, very slowly, very gentle, okay? Take your time. We don't want to caramelize them right away. To a hot pan, add butter, and you really, really want to melt your butter very slowly, okay? Very slowly, no coloration. When your butter is melted, it's time to add the onion. And make sure to stir very well the onions. Don't be afraid also to use your hand, your finger, and just separate all the onion. You want to really make sure the butter enrobe all the onions. It's very technique, but put some love over there. To the onion, add a pinch of salt. You want to saute your onions until they are translucent, okay? Translucent, a nice color, translucent. When the onions are nice and shiny, add the sugar. And then it's time to cook slowly the onions. Don't leave the kitchen. Always come to see what's gone in the pan, okay? Stir them every 5 minutes. I know it's a long process, but you're going to love it. You know your onions are done when you see the beautiful brown color and they stick together and you have like this, almost this onion paste. But it's very important you still feel the texture of the onions. They are cooked, but you still feel the onions. The combination of crispy dough, the melted compote onions, it's just a magical flavor in your mouth, but the onion tart is also a lot about texture. It's very crispy and very moist. Before we roll out our dough, we put flour on the board. You really want to roll the dough very, very thin. You can give any shape you want. You can do round, you can do oval, a square. Be free. When the dough is rolled, we are putting it around the rolling pan and then after transfer to a non-stick sheet tray. To a bowl, add crème fraîche and the fromage blanc. Mixing together, seasoning with white pepper and salt, and then mix that all together. You're going to spread that on the top of the dough, but very, very thin. Don't put too much. It's not a sauce. We are going to add our onions. Take them with your hand and really put a little bit everywhere on the tart. You really want to have the onions even. Each bite needs to be perfect. Sprinkle after with a little fresh thyme, then place in the oven. You know your dough is done when the tart gets crispy and when you can see already the caramelization of the dough and the caramelization also a little bit of the onions on top. We're going to grate some burtaga to give a little bit of fish flavor, but also the salt. You know, burtaga is very salty. And when the burtaga is on, this is our onion tart, like in south of France. When you taste together, when you have a bite, you have the crunchiness already of the dough, between your teeth. And so you hear the crunchy crackling in your mouth. And you have also the sweetness, the savory onion compote mixing with the dough, so it's really crispy and soft. It's like a symphony in the mouth. I really hope when people are going to eat the onion tart, bring memory, because a lot of people went to south of France and they're going to remember, oh, I have this dish when I was in south of France with my glass of rosé on vacation. It was great. I love making this dish because I love sharing, cooking, food with people, celebration. That's what all about food, really bring people together and sharing.
Next, we visit executive chef Nyesha Arrington at her restaurant Native as she pulls from childhood memories of cooking with her grandmother to create her take on a decadent dumpling. At her Santa Monica restaurant Native, Southern California native Nyesha Arrington draws on her multicultural history and local roots to celebrate Los Angeles cuisine. By mixing inspiration from her Korean grandmother with produce from the farmer's market, she creates one-of-a-kind dishes like her short rib dumpling.
The short rib dumpling really tells a story of my grandmother and her love for food and what inspired me to cook. Cooking next to my grandmother and watching her make these amazing mixtures to fill the dumplings with, I truly felt like they were little pockets of love when I would eat them. My name's Nyesha Arrington. I'm the executive chef and partner at Native Restaurant in Santa Monica. My grandmother's from Korea, and I learned how to cook very authentic Korean cuisine with her. I was definitely my grandmother's first sous chef. I like to say that was my first cooking job ever. When my friends were out playing, I was inside peeling garlic and making dumplings and making wontons, and I truly feel that was the first time I understood a culture through food. And since then, I've always been on a pursuit to evoke those emotions in people through the canvas of a plate. I've always wanted to put a dish on the menu that celebrates her, and that's really why I chose the short rib dumpling. It celebrates her life. She passed away when I was young, so her memories for me live on through my cooking. I love cooking with short ribs. They are a less expensive cut of meat, but the flavor goes a long way. We're going to take our short ribs and place them into a large pot. We're going to cover them with cold water, bring the water to a boil, and what that does is pull all the impurities out of the meat and gives you a really clear jus. As the water's boiling, you want to skim off any of the residue that rises to the top. We're going to remove them from the water and pat them dry. Now we're going to start building our layers of flavor. Into a pan that's been heated to about a medium-high heat, we're going to add a little bit of oil. We're going to add our short ribs back in until we get a nice sear on them. We are going to spoon our marinade over the meat. We add our carrots and our onions and cook everything until it's golden brown. What this is going to do is develop our flavor and actually impart lots of caramelization notes in our result of the sauce. We add soy sauce, garlic, brown sugar, Korean chili flake, and pulverized sesame seeds. My grandmother was very passionate about having thoroughly toasted sesame seeds, so it's something that is very important to me. Add water and stir everything together and bring it to a boil. We're going to turn down the heat and let this simmer for a few hours. You're looking really for this to be a sort of loose meat and very relaxed. Once the meat has been cooked through, it should look like jelly almost. It should actually be really soft and fork tender and fall apart pretty easily. We want to cool the short rib in the jus, which is really important because it's going to thoroughly soak up the jus that it's cooked in. So once the mixture is cool, we're going to strain out the braising liquid, and we're going to reduce this liquid by half to concentrate flavor and to not have the mixture be too loose or wet. While the braising liquid is reducing, we want to make sure that the meat is sort of broken up and becomes more pliable in the dumpling itself. Add some chopped parsley and chopped thyme, and then pour the braising liquid back in. We start to fold all of our ingredients together. Really what you're looking for is a mixture that's very consistent, not too big of chunks. You want to see the carrot, you want to see the herbs. Once we fold all the ingredients together, we're going to reserve until it's time to stuff the dumplings. This dish is amazing because it utilizes actually all of the short rib, using every single part of it. To the dough, we're going to add our filling. We want about 1 inch in diameter, really just enough to create that perfect bite. Spray with a little bit of water, and this is allowing us just to have a tacky surface for it to stick together. We're going to roll the dumpling into a tight roll, and then we're going to slice it. Once we have our dumplings cut, we're going to place them into the steamer to cook. I'm looking for a surface that is cooked throughout, definitely firm to the touch, but not too firm. You want them to be pillowy and soft and unctuous inside. Once the dumplings are cooked, we're going to add them to our plate. To garnish, we're going to add red mustard frills, which I absolutely adore with short rib because mustard is one of those classic pairings. And then we're going to top with our crunchy beef crackling, finish the dumplings with charred Brussels sprouts, and then we're going to top with beef fat, and that's just going to give this an impeccable mouthfeel. We finish this with the beef broth, essentially the cooking liquid left over from the braising of the short rib, which really fortifies and enriches the flavor of the filling. And that is our short rib dumplings. This dish is really amazing. It has impeccable texture from the short rib filling and a beautiful silky sheet of the dumpling dough. It has this amazing sort of earthiness coming from the Brussels sprouts and small amount of mustard flavor from the red mustard frills. Every bite, you're going to get a little bit of something different, whether it be the beef crackling, a little bit of the beef fat, some of the chewy dumpling dough, and the freshness from the greens. Really amazing. I love this dish because it really represents something that is special to me growing up. Cooking next to my grandmother were some of the most favorite memories that I have today. And this is just a little piece of me to the guests saying, welcome to Native. And this dish honors my grandmother by celebrating her life and legacy of love through food.
In LA, there always seems to be something to celebrate, whether it's a big Hollywood premiere, an elegant museum gala, or the opening of a new restaurant. Los Angeles likes its celebrations, and world-renowned pastry chef Dominique Ansel revels in what he loves the most, dessert. At his seasonal New American Bistro 189 by Dominique Ansel, he pays homage to the art of baking itself with his latest culinary creation, The Well.
To see his kitchen with chef's eyes. He takes the fundamental of baking and turns it into something creative and unique. My name is Dominique Ansel. I'm the chef owner of 189 here at the Grove in Los Angeles. Seeing something with chef's eyes, meaning being on a professional side of the kitchen, looking at the basics that not everyone sees, but only chef sees when you prepare the food. And the basic ways of starting any dough is to put a flour on your table, to create a little well, and to crack your eggs inside. So that's the basics, that's the fundamental of mixing a dough without making a mess. And this is what our desserts represent, the beginning of creating pastries. The well brings our guests into our kitchen to see what our chefs see and translate into a dessert. When you look at this dish, is that it looks like something something very simple, very basic ingredients like flour, eggs, but it's also something that can be twisted into something really creative and unique. The condensed milk granita is the main component of our desserts. It represents the flour in a well. Into a bowl, add condensed milk and regular milk. We just mix them together so the condensed milk will bring a little bit of the flavor and the sweetness in the granita. We will then put this into a silicone mold. We chose a square shape just to make it more practical. We put them in the freezer and we let the ice freeze. We will freeze it for a couple hours. Then we remove it from the freezer and pop them out of the mold. And now it's time to make our granita. We use a special chef ice machine that just pretty much shred any block of ice. And the goal is to have this powdery ice that we can pick up from the bottom and then preserve in the freezer. The passion fruit gelée represents the yolks into the dish. And I like it because it has a nice floral flavor and brings a little bit of acidity and contrast to the dish. The first thing we're going to do is to bloom the gelatin sheets, which means that we rehydrate the gelatin into cold water. To a pot, we're going to add the passion fruit puree and the sugar, and we will reserve a little bit of the sugar to mix with the pectin later. We'll whisk the sugar and passion fruit and start heating it up. We'll mix the sugar to the pectin to make sure that it dissolves it well in the mix. We're going to remove the gelatin from the water and squeeze all the water out so we don't add any more liquid to our mix. Then we'll add the gelatin to the pot. And we'll mix everything together. The gelatin will dissolve instantly and we'll have a nice smooth texture. We will form the egg yolks by pouring the passion fruit gelée into a silicone mold up to the top. Put in the freezer so it's easier to unmold. Once the gelée is set, we'll take it out of the freezer and we'll pop the gelée out of the mold. It should be solid and shiny. So we'll put them on a tray and place them in the fridge until it's fully defrosted. When it comes to plating, it's a step that has to happen really, really fast and really quickly as the ice will melt very, very fast. We'll remove the plate and the ring mold from the freezer and we'll place the meringue disc right in the center of the plate. We'll take the milk granita and pour it in the center of the dish. With a fork, we'll create a well by pushing it on the side of the ring mold. In the center of the well, we're gonna add the passion fruit gelée, and we'll take an eggshell that is cut and clean and place another passion fruit gelée in the center. And around the passion fruit gelée, we'll add our honey syrup, which represent the egg whites, and we'll bring another dimension to the dish. And then we have the well for $1.89. The flavors and textures are very playful. There's a mix of the crunchy meringue with the chef's eyes, the gelée. There's a lot of different textures, and the flavors are really fun because there's a little bit of acid from the passion fruit. There's a really nice floral note on the honey, and this delicate, milky flavor from the chef's eyes. People's reaction are really fun when they see it coming out. They are surprised. They don't imagine seeing a dish that looks so familiar, something that they've seen before, they've done before, and still being a created dish. This dish represents the beginning, the start of something, but it comes out at the end of the meal. It's also a way to bring people back to what we see in the kitchen and the fundamental of cooking.
Coming up, chefs Curtis Stone and Justin Hilbert of Maud in Beverly Hills honor an icon of French gastronomy, the legendary escargot. Few cuisines are more iconic than French cooking, with many chefs using its tastes and techniques as the foundation of their menus. And in Beverly Hills, at their wine-driven tasting menu restaurant Maud, Curtis Stone and Justin Hilbert explore the true essence of authentic French Epicureanism with dishes like their escargot and snell bisque.
When you think of French food and you think of snails, Burgundy is where it all came from. It's a cool part of the history of the French cuisine. That's where it began. I'm Curtis Stone, owner of Maud Restaurant in Beverly Hills.
I'm Justin Hilbert, executive chef of Maud Restaurant. Maud's a small restaurant, 24 seats. We do a tasting menu. Every season we change the menu based on a wine region from all around the world. And the people we meet and the wines we have and the stories they have to tell.
We decide we're going to Burgundy, then of course we have to find that snail producer. We've got to find that perfect Burgundian snail to do an incredible dish with. We flew in and met this guy, Sylvain, and he has this incredible snail farm.
Sylvain Perrault, he's the snail man. Amazing dude.
He's like the last official, this is in my mind, he's officially the last snail producer in Burgundy. The perfect guy that produces beautiful Burgundy snails in the old-fashioned way. And he showed us a variety of ways to cook them.
We made escargot with him. We stuffed them in the shells with butter. That he served us bisque with snails in it, and it was so good. The escargot and the bisque really represent what we love in Burgundy. We just wanted to do the same exact thing that we did with Sylvain to really honor the experience we had with him and all his snails. This bisque is inspired by the bisque we had in Sylvain's kitchen, which he made with crawfish and snails. We have beautiful sprout prawns here in Los Angeles, so I wanted to really showcase those in this dish. First, we need to clean the prawns, remove the heads from the tails, devein the shrimp, split the heads in half so we get a better sear on them when we cook them in the pan.
We heat a little oil in a pan. We add the shells and we caramelize it until it's golden brown.
After the shells have been browned, we remove them and start sauteing the vegetables. To the pan, we add shallots, leeks, celery, and carrots. We cook them down till they're nice and soft and browned. And we add the tomato paste. When we return the shells to the pan, we wanted to keep those shells out so we had more room to brown the vegetables so everything wasn't sweating in there.
Then we deglaze with a little Jura wine, we add some water and we reduce. By reducing that down, you're just gently cooking the vegetables and extracting the flavors as well as the shells, but you're also concentrating the flavor.
Once we reduce by a third, we add the cream and reduce again by a third. Once the cream is reduced, we pour everything into a blender and puree it until smooth.
Once the soup's smooth, you pass it through a chinois and you actually push it through with the back of a ladle to just extract all of that flavour.
We add a little bit of fresh tarragon at the end. Once the soup's finished, I just like to steep fresh herbs into things while they're hot to add a little bit of flavor. Then we finish it with some sea salt to taste and a little drop of fresh Jura wine. Stir everything together and reserve until plating.
Now it's time to stuff the shells. You just pick up the shell, put the snail inside the shell, and then take a little bit of that butter, quite a bit of that butter actually, and you force that butter straight in the hole above where that snail is.
We're looking for a 2-to-1 butter to snail ratio. The more butter, the better.
Once we finish stuffing them, we put them in the oven at 350 degrees. We're going to bake them for about 5 minutes. That butter gets nice and foamy, that garlic and shallot is just gently cooked, but you still have a nice vibrant green in all of the colour from the herbs. When you pull them out of the oven, they're bubbling, you can smell that garlic, you can smell all those different herbs, they just look fantastic.
The escargot and the bisque really complement each other because you have all those fresh herbs, the brininess of the snails, the creaminess of the bisque, and the freshness of the spot prawn.
To a bowl, we ladle just a little bit of that beautiful, rich seafood bisque.
To the bisque, we're going to add a couple escargot and 1 prawn tail. And then served alongside with our baked escargot.
So there you have it. It's our take on Burgundian snails with bisque. The flavour of the bisque is so rich because you're literally roasting out a lot of those shells. It's just this beautiful oceanic flavour, and then it works so nicely with the escargot.
Garlicky, herb, buttery flavor with the escargot. So good.
I love escargot because it's one of those staples that makes gastronomy what gastronomy is.
It's really nice to meet Sylvain and be able to honor his product.
There's a certain amount of respect that he's put all this love and thought and energy into these snails, and we get them and it's like a little gift for us, so we want to do the right thing by them. It's like a big love circle.
These 2 dishes encapsulate part of the reasons why we go to these places, to meet people and experience the way they live, what they do, and how they eat, and bring that back here.